Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff and another first impressions video today. And in this video we're going to be looking at Airfix's brand new tool for 2022 172 scale Orca Tempest Mk.V. Now this literally came out 2 weeks ago as I've recording this. I didn't have it on pre-order. So it's come to me a bit slower than perhaps the new releases usually do. Anyway, let's have a look. We've got the usual Airfix red box. Has our two little paint options here. Tells us it's 172 scale. And then as we look at the sides are the same as the box art. And you can see a bit more clearly the kit number there, which is 802109. We have the usual information on here, the careful small parts type thing. Tells us that we've got cartograph decals, that it's made in India, and the copyrights are all last year, age 8+. And then on this side we have our flying hour, which is 1, tells us it's a skill level 2. We have our paint list for both of the markings, and it tells you a little bit about the markings and a little bit about the aircraft. Both the paint markings come from 1944. We have June and we have April. Okay, so let's have a look in the box. So we have a nice full box of parts. It's pretty much up to the level there. And the parts can't move around too much in that box. So even though I know that this will be 2 bags of parts, I don't think it's packed too bad because nothing's really moving around. However, the parts are loose in the bag. They're not tightly packed like a mini art kit would be, for example. So if we take the parts out, you can see we'll have another bag with clear parts inside, and then we've got at the bottom we've got our instruction manual and our decals. So let's lift that out and have a look at the instructions. Right then, we have our standard format Airfix instruction manual, printed in colour, stapled A4. Obviously it's been folded to get in the box. And that sometimes can cause you problems with creasing and bits and pieces on the back, and we've got some creases here as a result, but it's nothing major, it's just an observation really. Start off as usual with some history and aircraft specifications, and actually you can usually get a bit more of a long-winded history on the Airfix webpage underneath the kit in the shop if you're interested in reading a little bit more about it. So we have that, and then at the bottom we have the usual instructions to make sure that you read everything carefully and wash your parts beforehand. And then as we go over the page, we have our assembly instructions. So we have a little note there in many different languages about studying the drawings and that sort of stuff. And then at the bottom you have your assembly key. We've done a number of Airfix first impressions, and so these are familiar. If you buy regularly Airfix kits, all of this will be fairly familiar territory. So let's start with the build. And in step 1 we are building up the pilot seat. Looks like we've got some nice texture on there, and that's mounting onto a frame. Then it looks like we're building up what looks like the floor pan possibly, or the oh no, it's the tail wheel. Okay. Okay, so we have the decal going on there for the various dials, and I'm going to suggest that E7 is a clear part looking at that. Then we go down to the big air scoop at the front there, 3 parts, and that should be hollow all the way through, so that should look quite nice. And then we're putting in the tail wheel bay, so I imagine the tail wheel retracts. I don't know much about the aircraft, to be honest. Looks like we've got some nice detail on the inside though, so clearly we need to be painting that and weathering or whatever we're doing before we close the fuselage up. The tail appears to be moulded in as well. Then, okay, we are adding those parts in. You can see we've already painted black and cockpit green. There's a bit of drilling to be done. See part C3 in step 39 on page 10. Okay, so it's probably to do with an option, and the same again there. And they are giving you the drill size, 0.6mm, which is nice. That takes us to step 7, and we're putting the 2 fuselage halves together. And then in step 8, we've got options, landing gear up, landing gear down. We've also got the option with the landing gear up. I mean, obviously you could do it with the landing gear down as well, because it does fly with the landing gear down when it's coming into land and taking off. But again, they're peddling this stand AF1006, which they haven't had in the store for years. And you can't get hold of it for love nor money. They sell the older style of stand, which goes in with a slot rather than 2 holes. So why they persist in putting this in their instructions is beyond me. Because anyway, quick rant over. We have a nice little idea here, which we saw in the new 172 scale Spitfire, I think it was, where the cannons are going into the wing as a separate component, which allows you to paint them individually and then put them in and mask them off and so on. We also have a frame here which obviously has some structure to it, but would also be the basis of the internal walls if you've got the landing gear down. So it appears to be the same frame, so there's no difference there. It's just a matter of putting these parts in to cover up the landing gear bay. Has a little lip there, so I'm just wondering whether we can use that for masking off, like they created a mask actually on the Mosquito. So it's a bit of a shame that when they've had a really good idea that they don't follow that through with more kits. It's almost like that was the idea we had with that kit, but we won't use it again. Why? It was a great idea. So yeah, we flip over 9 and 10. We've got some more drilling to do in 9. Again, it's referencing what you might want to do as an option. I'm guessing for drop tanks and bits and pieces. Notice we've got some underwing lights going in at this point, 3 of them. And then the upper wing seems to be a 1-part piece, so that's interesting. That is part of the cockpit floor. So I'll be interested to see how that's going together. Looks like all the flaps are moulded in place. Then we're putting pedals in, the flight stick, and then we appear to have another part of the fuselage that goes in after the 2 gone together. That looks like it'll hold the mounting points for the canopy. So that's interesting. I don't believe I've seen that before. Step 13, and we are mating the wing into the fuselage. So some of these cockpit components are on the wing, so imagine we'll have to proceed with a little bit of care. I didn't see a pilot option, I don't think, so no, I don't believe we've got a pilot in this instance, which I guess allows them to do this because there's no legs in the way. Then we've got the tail going in, and when you look at the parts, interestingly, it looks like they're marked starboard port, maybe. Can't quite see all of it, but yeah, that makes sure that you've got your orientation right. You don't put them in upside down, which is possible to do on some kits, certainly. Then we've got our tail going in. Be interesting to see if we can alter the angle of that if we want. It's not suggesting that you can, but you might be able to. Then tail wheel up or down, so we can close it all in there. So that's interesting. And then we've got the little fuselage opening if we're going to have it down, which goes on separate, so that's nice to see. Looks like we've got two parts to the tail wheel, so I'll be interested to see if we've got a gap and how realistic that looks. Step 18, and we're doing some more work on the undercarriage, building that up. Shows you both sides, and then we install that. We've got a little picture there just to give you some orientation. You can see they're just angled out a little bit at the end there. Then we've got the supports going in, so a bit more detail. Allows you to paint those up all separately and install them, which is nice. So we're now at step 25 of this 172 scale aircraft. And we've got more landing gear bay stuff going in, hydraulics or whatever it is. And then we've got the wheels going in. Now, looks like we've got weighted wheels, which is nice. But again, it also looks like the hubs are moulded in. And on the Mosquito, certainly, they had the one side of the hub out, so it was easier to paint. And there was a little hole in there, so you could mount it on a toothpick and paint it easily. So why wouldn't they apply that to this kit? I go back to, if you've had a good idea, keep applying it to all your other kits, because it's still a good idea. Yeah, I don't get why they've not done that. It's strange. Okay, we've got that little movable flap at the back of the air intake going in. Again, it's not suggesting it could be angled, but I'm sure it could be. Step 31, pitot tube. We've got the little drop down foot stirrup, and we've got, I'm not sure, is that an aerial or something like that, possibly sticking out of the bottom. I don't know whether it's one that goes up and down, like on the Bolt and Paul Defiant. They raise up when the landing gear comes down. But yeah, you can definitely see that in place and the angles you need to do, so that's nicely done. Right, we've got the exhaust, and they've used that two different sections of exhaust like they did on the Mosquito, and that was a really nice. It means you've not got the exhaust all compact with each other, and it's easier to paint. So I really love that idea. It looked great when I saw it in the kit parts on the Mosquito, so we'll have a look at that in a minute. But it's a really good idea for being for ease of getting into paint. So I'm glad they've carried that idea through. Then we've got an option of 2 different spinners really on your propeller. Shape's different and there's a ring on one. And then we're using, again, they had a really great idea on the Spitfire and they've not used it here. But you're building it up and then basically the whole spinning unit goes into that fuselage. But I preferred the solution that came up with the Spitfire, so why they're not using it again, I don't know. Okay, we are on the final straight, so, oh, there is a pilot, I beg your pardon. Step 38, we're adding the pilot. Not sure which member of Airfix staff that is depicted there. But it's, yeah, it can go in the seat afterwards, so that's nice. Then we've got another aerial going on the top. Again, it's angled, so take care with that you don't have it upright. Then we've got the canopy going on, and again we have options open and closed. Appears to be the same part. Sometimes you have different parts depending on whether it's open or closed, to ensure that you get the right fit. But in this instance, it can be open or closed with the same parts, which means we've got a really nice working design there. Yeah. Okay, so 39 steps in all. That's quite a hefty number for a little fighter aircraft. Okay, then we go over to our paint instructions. So we become landscape, and this page has got a bit creased, so it needs an iron going on it really. So we can see we've got plenty of decals. All of those red boxes are decals. So even though we've got quite a tiny little plane, and it's, you know, almost the same size as in the picture, we've got tons of little decals on there. So I really like that. I enjoy doing decals anyway. I think it brings it to life, so the more the merrier. And it would appear that the stripes are decals as well, so not to everyone's taste, but easy enough to mask all that and paint that on if you prefer. The yellow edges and a yellow nose cone there, so quite a striking aircraft that. That's the June 44 based in Kent. And then we will have over the page our second painting scheme, which is essentially the same but without the stripes, I guess. So based in Cambridgeshire in April 1944. So a more standard Second World War RAF camouflage scheme, I guess. No less decals though. All your paints called out in the middle, and then not just showing you where they are, giving you the numbers so you can be sure you're getting it all right. Yeah, but you know, a good standard set of Airfix instructions that are always good, easy to follow. They've broken down the steps a lot, which is why you've got so many, but that works for me, so I'm happy with that. Okay, decal sheet. So the usual Airfix format, we have above the line everything that's common, which includes the roundels, anti-slip. This is the edge marking on the wing. We've got all sorts of stencils in there. Many of them are really, really tiny. And then we've got the dials for inside the cockpit, which look nice and colourful and actually on a clear backing. So yeah, we'll have to just check what colour it should be in the background, because there's a lot of black on the dash decals there. Look at that, you can see it's clear in the background, so need to pay attention to that a little bit. That's our tail marking as well, so they put decals on here for a lot of stuff that quite often you just mask off to paint, so I quite like that because I like putting decals down, but some people will definitely not be as keen. Then the main decals for option A is these stripes. They've put loads of them on, but because you've got literally no margin of decal film. These can go on with real precision. That's a beautiful set of decals. And then in option B, you've just got the flight markings that identify the aircraft. Can you see no margin at all out on the outside edges of this? Lovely and crisp, really beautiful, really nicely done. So let's look at some plastic then. So our first frame A, first thing I'm going to note is we seem to have detached from the tail there. Yeah, but as we look at the fuselage first, the panel lines are really nicely done actually. Sometimes we get complaints about Airfix panel lines historically being a little trench-like, but these definitely aren't. We have some fastener detail on the top edge above the exhaust there. Yeah, nicely done. I can't see any sprue gates that are in a place that causes a problem. As we'd expect for a first moulding, it's very crisp, no flash, and I don't see any sink, so that's good. We've got our spinners in the middle, which are nicely done, and that's our backs for them, and that's the internal part. And then we have this little piece that we saw that goes in the top. So it'd be interesting to see how easy it is to line all that up and whether that solves any problems with filling. That's our internal parts for the wing. The front air scoop has got a really nice fine mesh detail on it. Really lovely actually. And we've got nice pattern on the back of the seat, and we even have some detail on the seat. We have the little ratchet on the side, and once again it's noticeable that we've got really hard plastic. So I've not seen anything officially announced about them changing the plastic, but they definitely have. That is rock hard, that. Very nice, that actually. Can't grumble at any of that. If we turn it over, we can have a look at the inside detail there. So we've got some detail for the tailwheel bay inside the cockpit area, some of the framework, so you could pick that out nicely, paint it or dry brush it even. Yeah, very nice. We can see we've got a couple of ejector pin marks there on the inside of the cockpit. I suggest possibly that one might be visible, but not that one. So we've got a little bit of cleanup to do there. But by no means anything major. I think that's really nicely done. Frame B, we've got the underside of the wing, and we have the little inserts for the wing there if you're having the gear up. And we appear to have two different styles of wheels. Now I didn't notice that in the instructions, so that's possibly for future release versions, I would imagine. The two tail pieces and the tail section there. So let's deal with the wings first. The nice level of detail in terms of panel lines carries on through, and then we've got lots and lots of little fastener details. We've got dimples along the front there, fastener details there. We've got the exit points for the spent ammunition. The grooves for the flaps are slightly heavier, as we would expect, so that's all good. The wing lights are moulded in, so you're going to have to paint those. They're not clear parts. So again, on the Mosquito, I seem to recall that the tips of the wings were clear, so you could paint the lamps in. So again, it's another idea that they've had that was really good that they've not carried on through to the next kit, which is a bit disappointing. Not building on their good ideas, I don't think. The detail on the tyres is really nice, but again, I question why they've put the hubs in when they didn't do previously. And again, that was a good idea. Detail throughout is really nice. We've got some texturing on the tail there that you can probably just see in the light. We'll show you a bit more closely in a minute. There's nothing on the inside of the lower wing. Some lovely fastener detail on the inside of that wheel. Very nice, actually. And then yes, we've got an S for starboard and a P for port on the tail. And there's your little detail there. Now if we turn that over, that wing looks lovely, doesn't it? And the wheels look lovely. Just why did they mould the hubs in? Don't get it. Right, frame C, we've got the upper wings here. That's quite an interesting novel idea they've done with joining them together with some of the cockpit flooring. Yeah, I think that works all right, actually. Again, we've got a really nice level of detail on these wings. Lots of dimples on this side, none on that side, so I'm sure that's historically accurate. One thing Airfix do is their research very well. Yeah, really nice, really, really nice. We've got the cannons there. They're okay. That's the tail wheel enclosures there, and the tail wheel itself was 2 parts. And as I look at it, I'm not sure what they're gaining from that. We'll have to see when we put the parts together. But you know, you're not getting it separate from the little U-clip that's holding it in. So I'm not quite sure what the gain is for doing it in 2 halves. Some very nice detail on that steering stick. Pedals, they're okay for the scale. Pilot, again, loose. Possibly this harder plastic is a little bit more brittle, and that's going to cause them more issues with parts coming off. So it'd be interesting to see how that develops. Pilot's okay, a little bit soft molded on the front. I know that they always find pilots a little difficult, but basically they're standard pilot pose. Surface detail on their wings is lovely, and if we flip it over, we can see they've got internal texture there. No issues there with ejector pins, so that's all good. No flash, no sink, lovely crisp moulding, really, really nice. Continuing to improve their game when it comes to detail and presentation of the parts. Okay, frame D, and first thing I notice is we've actually got quite a bit of flash. So I don't know whether I've just fallen unlucky or whether all of the frame Ds are going to have the same issue. But we've got flash on the propeller blade. I mean, easy to clean up, it's not an issue, but I point it out. And we've got a lot of flash around the exhaust, huge amounts of flash. So a little bit of careful cleanup needed on the exhaust because they're quite delicate parts given their size. Yeah. So let's go back to the propeller. The sprue gates are right onto the propeller blades, and I don't like that. We don't need to be doing that in this day and age. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. That makes it just harder to clean up for people. Yeah. But the propeller itself looks perfectly fine. We've got two of the exhaust sections there which are nice and sharp, and the landing gear which has nice detail on it, and then we've got the outside parts of the landing gear which have nice detail on the inside as well. More parts of the landing gear flaps, again they look a little bit flashy again, and these are the support struts that we see. They're really delicate parts, very finely moulded. Those, they're lovely. Also very likely to get damaged in that one bag. Look how delicate they are. Anyway, then we've got some more internal parts, more parts of the flaps. That's part of the spinner assembly, and that's the inside of the tail wheel bay there. Now, one more thing that I noticed, and I don't think I've ever pointed it out before, and other manufacturers should take note of this. Airfix put the recycling logo on the sprue. So as long as you don't get any paint on it and don't cut your sprue into pieces, you can put this, when you're done with it, in your plastic recycling. And I think that's a really nice step, but not enough manufacturers are doing it. Then you need to have that on to tell you what it is. Tamiya do it, but I can't think of anyone else other than Airfix and Tamiya that do it. I'm sure there must be others, and if you know who they are, by all means put them in the comments. I'd be interested to know. But yeah. So our final plastic parts is a much larger than usual clear frame. And, well, what have we got? This is frame E, and we appear to have drop tanks, clear drop tanks. And I can see that we've got the connecting fin, that the hang off is crystal clear, and then we've got this sort of textured drop tank underneath. Now, if you've got any idea why they've done that as a clear part, I'd love to know. I mean, were these connection fins clear, or I'm not sure. I don't even remember seeing them in the instructions, to be honest. Yeah, that's it might be a nice idea depending on what I'm sure they wouldn't have been clear, would they, in the real thing? I'm a bit perplexed by that, so if you've got an understanding of why that might be clear, I would love to know. But only make the comment if you do know, don't speculate. Just tell me if you do know. Right. The canopy itself is very clear. It's a little distorted, but actually not too bad. I've seen better, but I've also seen a lot worse. And given the shape of it and the thickness of the plastic at this scale, it's not too bad. The front one is slightly better because it's flat, I guess. But yeah, that all looks all right. Then we have got, that's the part we saw right at the start. Was it step 2 or step 3? I said, I bet that's a clear part, and it is. And look how delicate it is. Really delicate. And then we've got our wing lights. So yeah. And if you know why they're clear parts, comment below, please. So there we have it, the brand new 2022 Hawker Tempest Mk.V in 1:72 scale. What's my first impression? Okay, the kit is very, very nice. The detail is nice. The method of building it looks really, really nice. And I think what you get looks phenomenal. It looks great. I have no issues with anything that's in this kit whatsoever. I'm intrigued to know why we've got clear drop tanks. But other than that, I think this is all very understandable, simple. The construction steps, There's many of them because they've simplified it, which makes it easy for the novice or younger modelers to follow. Highlights, the exhaust system is a definite highlight, the way they've designed that to make it easier to paint. The fact that you've got the wings already jointed, so you're not going to have issues with joins and misaligning or anything like that. That's another highlight. It's well thought out. And the level of detail is another highlight, as is the harder plastic, which I've got to say I really love, and the last few kits I've reviewed that had it. Low lights, let's see, I think in terms of the actual kit, the only thing I could possibly fault is the fact that we've not got clear wingtip lights. And we know from past experience with Airfix that they can do it. They can do the tip clear so that you can do what you need to do with that and paint the rest of the part and glue it all on. They've done it, so why is it not in this? And I think that is my actual bigger observation of this first impressions kit. The last 3 1/72 scale kits from Airfix that I have reviewed have all had some form of innovation. The Spitfire that they released in the back end of 2020 or 2021, I think it was, that had some nice innovations, particularly around the propeller and the way that was mounted, a bit like how they do it on their quick build Spitfires. And it meant that you could build it and you didn't get any drop from the weight of the propeller in that little hole where the pin goes through. And it was a really nice solution. But they've not carried that on through to the next build. Why not? Is there an issue with it that I don't know about? Possibly. Does it not work on this particular kit for some reason? Possibly. But I don't see it. I think it would work on here, and so why have they not put it through? On the Mosquito particularly, there was some really nice innovation. There was masking for the landing gear bays, which were in the engine nacelles. So that was a really nice touch. And I believe they did it. It was the first time I saw the exhaust system. So why haven't they done a little masking blanking plate for having the gear down? I mean, you could use the gear up part as a part to temporarily attach for painting before you add the landing gear. So I think my wider comment is Airfix have been doing some real nice innovation and continue to improve. But a good idea remains a good idea, and they should apply it to more kits and even make it their standard approach until they've had a better idea. What we're looking for is continuous improvement, not continuous change. And I think Airfix just need to think about banking some of their great ideas and having them as a suite of design ideas they can pull into the next kit as they design it, rather than the individual designer starting from scratch and possibly missing something that was already dealt with. So that's my wider commentary. When it comes to this kit, absolutely lovely. I'm sure it's going to build up to be very, very detailed and beautiful. The only thing I think missing from an aftermarket point of view is harnesses if you don't want the pilot in. Otherwise, that's a straight out of the box, as lovely as it can be. Beautiful little kit. Okay, hope that was helpful. Take care, everyone. Enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon.